The Mesa Chamber of Commerce Inside Business Podcast brings you a unique view of Mesa through its vibrant business community and the subjects that are important. The podcast is produced in the Mesa Chamber of Commerce Media Studio, sponsored by the University of Phoenix. Our podcast is hosted by Mesa Chamber of Commerce CEO Sally Harrison. Please enjoy this episode of the Mesa Chamber Inside Business Podcast.
Well, hello, intrepid listeners to the Mesa Chamber Inside Business Podcast. I am today's host. This is Bob Nelson, the Communications Director, and joining me today is Matt Rosenkilde from Torch Wellness. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing today, Bob?
I am fantastic, as usual.
Yes,
as
sir.
usual. So I'm taking this episode of the podcast today. Matt, we're going to talk a lot of stuff today.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about. Are you ready for this? Are you psyched?
Let's get it.
All right, let's go. Let's actually start with a little about you and Torch Wellness. So give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, so I came into the therapy community as a therapist about 10 years ago, and I was working in a methadone clinic, and I would see people line up outside the doors every morning, and I was like, man, there has to be a better way to do this. So I started researching the benefits of physical health, exercise, nutrition on our mental health, and realized that there's a direct correlation according to science. And so we really looked at a model that was going to marry those things so people could get fully well. So you can't be well if you're physically unwell, or fully mentally well if you're physically unwell.
So a very holistic approach, both sides of the coin, if you will.
Definitely a holistic approach, because sometimes, people go to the gym and they're not mentally present, or they use things like, I'm going to try to go to the gym. And so just giving them sort of self permission not to go to the gym. And so it's sort of like identifying the function of that thing. So what's the function of food? What's the function of exercise? What's the function of making sure that we're self-caring?
Cool. Now, Torch has been open for how long?
Torch opened virtually in June of 2020. And so
Nice.
I know. Yeah. It was a great time to start right in the middle of the pandemic, or beginning of the pandemic. And then we opened our first physical doors in July of 2020 in an executive suite. And then in May of 2021, we expanded into this combined space that had the fitness center, and then offices for life coaching, nutrition, and then separately counseling offices.
It's kind of interesting. One of the trends that I'm seeing is that businesses that opened during the pandemic have tended to stay open. Like, they've tended to survive because basically their start was in the most challenging circumstance.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about, now we're on the other side of that, right?
Yep.
Or at least, we're as far on the other side of that as we can be at the moment.
Exactly.
Like, what's next for Torch? Like, what do you see now that you have the ability to kind of engage a little bit more? Before we get into a specific, before we get into a specific type of engagement, talk about how you guys have come out of that and where you're going.
So we've really strived we're sort of intentionally small. We really want the space to be inviting and safe for people to come in there. And so we've always, kept it between maybe 5 or 6 clients on the fitness floor at any time. And then separately, the offices for nutrition or life coaching on the other side that's separate. And so people have adequate space to work out and work out one-on-one with someone, so we can meet them exactly where they are. And then separately from that, we've sort of built out a virtual platform so people can work out and get fit and manage their nutrition and mental strength from wherever they are.
So let's, again, I'm dancing around before we dive into the real meat of the interview.
Yeah, let's get it.
Tell me a little bit about what drew Torch to Mesa as a location.
So I was born and raised in Mesa, Arizona. I attended all of my high school, middle school, elementary education all in Mesa. And so Mesa has been my roots.
What was your high school?
For forever. I went to Westwood.
Westwood Warrior.
Yeah.
That you.
Yeah.
All right.
And so that whole string there, Emerson, Carson, and Westwood was sort of where I grew up.
Cool.
And then aside from that, we just have a massive amount of supports in the Mesa area. And so Mesa just made a lot of sense for that to be one of our primary places that we do business.
And I know you kind of talk about your experience that kind of got you to the point where you opened Torch, but talk a little bit more about that, because we know in business people want to know people, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, I actually got into mental health in an effort to increase suicide awareness and prevention. That was my heart. I had lost somebody close to me to suicide in 2010. And then subsequently, we lost a couple more people to suicide. And so I just didn't want that to happen to anyone else. And so I wanted to fight against that in any way that I can to increase awareness and prevention around that. So that was sort of my heart to become a therapist. I was really into journalism prior to that. And so journalism communication. So it's like write editorial columns that sort of agitate people and then go over and do something completely different, which is to sort of heal people from agitation and challenges that they might face in their life. And then on the fitness side of things, it was always been really important to me. So I was a power lifter. And so I was on a seafood diet. I saw food and I ate it so I could lift the weight that I wanted to lift. I just had to eat as much as I could. And I noticed as I started getting older, I was really proud of the weight that I was lifting, but I noticed my joints didn't like that as much. The weight
physics wasn't working out.
Yeah, the physics was not working out as well. And so I decided to sort of modify my routine. Actually, as recent as February of this year, my top weight was 310 pounds. And then today I weighed in at 239 pounds.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And so that's been a big deal. My joints thank me. My gut health thanks me. And so through my study, I realized that 80% of our serotonin lives in the lining of our stomach. And so if we're eating foods that are not pleasing to the lining of our stomach, which are what you do when you're sort of just trying to jam in calories, your stomach doesn't like that so much, and that has a negative impact on our mental health. And then the other 20% is accounted for through our movement of our body, intentional movement and exercise. And so really just the marriage of those things, understanding the impact that nutrition has and fitness has on mental health, really transformed my life many times over.
So let's dive a little bit now into some of the work that you're doing here to kind of bring that same message out to the public. You've partnered with the Chamber on a fantastic program. Tell us about that.
So we started this 12-week challenge. We are still noticing that people maybe were hesitant to come in, or maybe they're busy working professionals and don't have time to sort of come into the facility. So we built a 12-week challenge where people can come in, or they can do it from wherever they are. And so they can do it from home. They can do it from another gym that's maybe closer to their house. And we actually build out a program where they can see, they can get engagement, they can build community right through our trainer application that we use. So it's really a way that they can connect to the gym community, the mental strength community, without having to walk through the doors.
And this is a fluid program, right? People, they can join this program at any point to begin that 12-week process.
Absolutely. So we're actually we've started doing start dates once a month. And so we sort of ramp up so we get enough participants and challengers in so we can just make sure that it's full for the prizes and the fun stuff, the fun side of the challenge. Because I know sometimes changing your diet and changing your fitness routine is challenging. And so part of that was just to make sure that the fun and games and stuff that we're going to do within the challenge is we have an adequate number of participants.
But it's an inviting program. Like, it's not something where you feel like, oh my God, I got to start this challenge, right? It really is, hey, just start to do the little things that are going to eventually become the big things, right?
100%. It is a completely meet you where you are sort of program. And so regardless of your fitness level, regardless of what you're doing with your nutrition, regardless of what you're doing with your mental strength, we build in mindfulness components that can help people sort of help regulate the way that they think about things. And then we also build in fitness components and nutrition components that will meet any person exactly where they are.
Which is like the biggest obstacle, right? Is that people feel like this is insurmountable.
100%.
Or they just get discouraged or what have you. And then, like, this whole program was designed to reassure people that that's not the case.
Absolutely. So as we feel discouraged, we feel like, well, I've tried this before, it didn't work. Through that discouragement, sometimes that'll be a barrier that comes up for people. They're like, I don't want to try something else. And so Torch really, whether it's at Torch or whether it is at home, we've really built a program that is built on community and built on support and encouragement. And so when we feel discouraged, we really can connect to a community that will lift us up.
And then we start to see the connection between the physical and the mental.
That's exactly right.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the different services that you have. So I have highlighted on my cheat sheet in-body composition. Talk a little bit about that.
So the in-body composition machine will tell you everything that you do and maybe don't want to know.
It's like the fun machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool machine. It tells you everything from your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate is a really important number to know because this is the number that tells you how many calories you can afford every day to maintain your weight.
1,700 is my number.
Hey, I love it that you remember that. Yeah, big deal. So that number is really a big deal. So if you're trying to shed pounds, certainly eating at a deficit that's manageable and sustainable is important. Or if you're trying to gain some weight, then eating in a surplus is important. Or if you just want to maintain your weight, that's okay too. Then you just maintain your basal metabolic rate. And then we sort of look into, macros and all kinds of other things down the road. But the InBody will also tell you your skeletal muscle mass. So moving your skeletal muscle mass north will actually increase your basal metabolic rate, which a lot of people don't know. And so if you want to be able to eat more calories, build more muscle. And then in the other numbers that are important, our percentage of body fat is on there, and it actually segments that throughout your body. So it tells you exactly where all of that lives.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Very much gave you a good high level overview and pinpoint some of the areas that you may want to work on.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think if we don't know exactly what we want to pinpoint, I mean, many of us know, we carry it a lot in our trunk. And so that's where the other number comes in to play, which is the visceral fat. So the visceral fat is actually the fat that lives around our organs. That is the dangerous fat. So that's fat that we want to target fairly immediately to help people get down into a healthy range. But the InBody has all that information on there.
So, and one of the ways that you help people do that is because you open up the gym and let people kind of access with open hours, right?
100%. Yeah, we really want people to come in and be able to feel the community of Torch, feel the support of Torch, and so we have opened up for challengers to be able to come in and just experience those open gym times, to feel that support, and also get some guidance through our guided workouts that are on the board or using their Trainerize app.
So, what's your favorite piece of equipment that you guys have? What's yours?
Oh man,
the rope's pretty cool.
The endless rope is awesome. That's our newest piece of equipment, and that's super exciting. But my favorite piece of equipment in the gym is probably the tank. I really love the tank.
Tell everybody about the tank.
Yeah, so the tank, they say on its highest level of resistance is actually the equivalent of pushing or pulling a monster truck. Yeah, and so it's pretty.
Yeah, that's right. There was somebody pulling from that when we went in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so the tank is really helpful. It's great for a leg
It's
stay.
not a literal tank, by the way.
Not a literal tank. Yeah. And so, we have pictures up on our socials and stuff of the tank. And so, but it's a super helpful piece of equipment. It helps burn calories quickly. You can do things like parachuting off of there, or you can just do the push-pull mechanisms on there.
So, in addition to that, though, I mean, this program really kind of zeroes in on every piece of how you overall interact with not just food, but emotional and all of that. But there is a nutritional element. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So the nutrition component is really, a lot of programs invite you to eat at a significant deficit. There's 500 calorie programs out there, 800 calorie programs out there. And what we know about those programs is, unfortunately, they're just not sustainable over your whole life. And so if you look at somebody's basal metabolic rate, I would say the average is probably between 1,200 and 1,700 calories on average. If you eat at an 800 calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. But then when you return to your normal diet, you're going to gain all that weight back. And so we really focus our nutrition program around sustainability. We want people to be able to eat at a rate that they're comfortable with. And so we take your basal metabolic rate, and then we look at what your goal is. And then we come up with a plan together of, like, there's certain things that people aren't willing to give up. And I think that's one of the biggest fears coming in is like, I don't want to give up this, or I don't want to give up that. I don't want to give up chips, whatever that thing is. And they don't want to come in because they're afraid of losing the things that they love. And so our program is not taking away the things that you love. It's just making sure that you understand that what you're eating and the function of eating, and eating as fuel.
This is a great segue into sort of some of the more behavioral coaching elements of the program. So talk about those.
100%. So One of the biggest things is that sometimes we don't understand the power that our words have. And so I've invited people to consider the impact of the word try. I'm going to try to go to the gym today. And then so we don't realize that sometimes that's giving ourselves permission not to do that thing. And then there's always the January 1st New Year's resolution. I'm going to change my life this week. And then you notice that the gyms are packed the first 6 weeks of the year. And then that invariably tapers off, very quickly or slowly. And I think that it's important that people just understand that they can make a change at any point. It's just understanding that they can build a program that's based upon their willingness to change. And we really focus at Torch on one thing that you're willing to change. And so if we can just get that one thing and get them to believe that one change is possible, with that buy-in, you can do a lot of work.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, outside of the scope of the 12-week program, there are other things and other services and so on that you offer. So tell everybody a little bit about that.
100%. So we offer one-on-one personal training. And so that's one-on-one attention, anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, whatever you're comfortable with. And then on the other side, we offer the nutrition coaching, nutrition planning, and then we offer the life coaching services. And so this is really helpful if you're noticing some of that hesitation, if you're noticing some of the resistance. The life coaching can really help push you through. And then separately, Torch Counseling offers the counseling services, the therapy services for people that might need some assistance in working to get to that, whatever their therapeutic goals might be.
Cool. So how do people sign up? Or how do people engage with you to learn more about the 12-week program or some of the other services that you offer?
Absolutely. Well, they can certainly look at our website, which is www.torchwc.com. They can give us a call at 480-709-4635, or they can check us out on all social media platforms, which has helpful content for them to look at Torch WC.
You guys have a Twitter?
We do.
Do you like it? Or not? Not Twitter. TikTok. Sorry, TikTok.
Yeah, we did. I'm not awesome at TikTok yet, but I'm working on increasing my level of awesomeness.
So we've just got this.
TikTok.
We've got this back and forth going in the office about whether or not we should be on TikTok.
Yeah.
So I'm using this as a poll opportunity.
That's exactly right. So I actually do post on TikTok now. Not as frequently. I'm still figuring out, sort of the algorithms and how to connect with the TikTok community, but it is a big platform. That in addition to, sort of LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook.
Sure.
So those are ones that we're posting on consistently.
And what's next for Torch? So, expansion, more offerings, kind of what's the future?
So the future is what we'd like to see is just a bigger, sort of more industrial space that people can come in and use the fitness equipment regularly. On their own, so have an open gym component, just like any other big box gym would have, and then separately continue with the private studio focus, and then branch out and have satellite counseling offices across the valley that are focused and decorated in the theme of fitness and nutrition. And so the goal is to sort of branch out and, as we separate the counseling practice out, have that in separate offices, and then the life coaching and the nutrition and the personal training all in one big industrial space.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, here's to the growth of that. We're going to see that happen over the next few years. So
Absolutely.
It'll be exciting.
Yes.
Everybody make sure you get a hold of Matt to get signed up for the 12-week program. I know we've had a lot of fun engaged in the 12-week program on a lot of levels here through the program that the Chamber created, but obviously there's a lot more that you can get engaged with at Torch. Matt, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right.
This has been a Mesa Chamber of Commerce Inside Business podcast. You can find all podcast episodes at iTunes, Spotify, or your own favorite podcast website. You can also find them online at mesachamber.org. Content of this podcast is copyright the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, unless otherwise noted.